This is an overview of the political history of France. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting journey. I'll talk about building the state. I'll talk about building democracy and the instability that France has gone through its vicissitudes of politics, and finally to its contemporary, more stable state. So let's start. Building the state. Now we're going back to the 1400s and specifically the origins of something called parliamentary democracy in the origins of parliament, the nucleus of what would later become parliament in France. Now, these States General that were, sorry for mangling the French language, by the way, that were established by Louis XI. So this was the three estates. First, the clergy, those who praise, then the aristocracy, those who fight, and third, the merchant class, those who work. So they had representation at the État Général that the king could summon to hear their advice and so on. But sovereignty rested firmly with the king, and of course, never was that more true than with Louis XIV, Louis XIV, the Sun King, who effectively developed the absolutist monarchy. L'état c'est moi, he is attributed at saying, I am the state. He centralized the power of the French state, so we can definitely speak about a unitary state in the case of France. He had a standing professional army, the most formidable of its day, and he had a state-run mercantilist economy, and he never summoned the État Général. So this was really powerfully centralized into the executive with absolutely no checks and balances and certainly nothing called the type of parliament that his equivalent, the King of England or the Kings of England, because of course he ruled for a long time, they had to relate to a parliament in some way that Louis XIV never had to bother with. This ended with the French Revolution, which of course was inspired by the American Revolution, was based on liberal thought, les droits de l'homme, mangling French again. This is a picture of this document that was such an important document for politics in general. Also, to some extent, inspired by some proto-socialist thought, and turned the power of the state, of the church, into an issue, and quite contentious issue as well. However, even though it broke with the monarchy and effectively ended monarchy in France for the time being, it actually did not do what the American Revolution had done. In the American Revolution, the reaction to centralized power centralized into the hands of the king, was to create a political system with separation of powers. In the French case, there was instead reinforced centralization. So the idea of the revolutionaries was having centralized power is not a problem as long as the good guys have it. So as long as the right political party is in power, centralization can be a good thing and be used to do much good in society. Of course, the revolution ended in the Jacobin reign of terror. So moving on to post-revolution, building democracy during the 1800s all the way up to the 1950s, lots of things going on. In terms of political parties, you had an anti-clerical left and a pro-clerical right, which was a fairly basic cleavage there. And then you had lots of vicissitudes in France. The French Revolution ended with an end to what could have become parliamentary democracy, and instead became the first empire under Napoleon Bonaparte. And then the Bourbons were reinstated, and then there was the Revolution of 1848 when universal suffrage for men actually was instituted very early compared to many other countries. But of course, then there was 1852 when the Second Empire came under Napoleon III, and then the Second Empire was ended when France was defeated by Prussia in 1871, and for a brief moment there was the Paris Commune, which would inspire communists later on with its very radical politics. And after that came the Third Republic, which lasted until World War II. And this is where we get to the many republics, because the Third Republic and then the Fourth Republic, ineffective government was the really the hallmark of the day. You had a political system based on multi-party systems that effectively were really fragmented in Parliament and deadlocked Parliament. And you had an executive that could not dissolve Parliament to trigger a new election to solve the deadlock. And also, this fueled a political culture of increased alienation. So this was just a spiral of a negative spiral of um, mutually reinforcing factors that kept this process in a status quo. So the Third and Fourth Republic is simply proved incapable of solving difficult issues, and this was effectively ended with the revolt of the army and the settlers in Algeria that ended the Fourth Republic. Meanwhile, of course, there was also industrial revolution, but unlike in a country like Britain, where you had a fairly unified labor movement, you in France had fragmented political opinion, both a fragmented right and a fragmented left. You had no unified economic right wing. You had workers that would support the Social Democrats, but others would support more radical socialists like the Socialist Party and the Communist Party and so on. So intense fragmentation on all sides in politics, even when it came to class identification and class-based politics. The final end to this is, so far anyway, what happens in the process between 1945 and 1970, which is the turn from the Fourth to the Fifth Republic. During the Algeria crisis, Charles de Gaulle was given power to revise the constitution. He strengthened the executive quite significantly to make the president more capable of taking decisive political action, lessening the power of parliament. And this lent some stability to the system. And the first test of this system was the crisis of 1968, when students went to the street in the days of May to protest, and when workers started striking nationwide. It meant it meant that de Gaulle had to leave office. And at this stage, many people were worried that he had created an effective non-democratic system that would fall if he left office. But that didn't happen. Uh, Despite the ominous predictions made by some, the Fifth Republic remained intact. The it was not on the agenda of the protesters to bring down the Fifth Republic and set up a Sixth Republic. Instead, what happened was the resignation of Charles de Gaulle and the peaceful transition to a new president, a new government. And when later the Gaullist party lost power to the socialist, the Fifth Republic finally had proven its resilience and its capacity to manage the transfer of power from one party to another, and thus it still stands. The Fifth Republic still stands. So going over all of this, we can really see that France has been characterized by really unstable regimes. We've had the Bourbons, the First Republic, the First Empire, the Bourbon Restoration, July Monarchy, Second Republic, Second Empire, Third Republic, Vichy regime, Liberation government, Fourth Republic, and Fifth Republic over the past 200 years-ish. So, in other words, France has had 15 constitutions, 5 republics, 3 monarchies, 2 empires, 2 provisional governments, and a fascist regime in this period of time. Uh, Historically quite weak regimes. Now, since the rise of the Fifth Republic, this cycle seems to be broken. It seems like this republic has held. Of course, the Third Republic held for a while as well. But maybe this has been the change that was required, the transition from Fourth to Fifth Republic, to bring about a more stable regime in France. So if we compare then France to the United States and the United Kingdom, we can see a much more tumultuous history, a history really characterized more by revolutionary change and almost convulsing regimes and instability in terms of the regimes, uh, and a great deal of instability. And yet today, France does number among the entrenched democracies in the world, which goes to show that there are many ways to achieve the state of entrenched democracy. I hope you found this tutorial useful.